Welcome everybody. This is No Bullshit Gaming Podcast 2.5 Gamers session number 24. We are discussing latest news, having fun and dropping knowledge. But let's not forget, and this is super important, this is 4 a.m. conference discussion vibe, so please let's not take this seriously or too serious. But then today we have Felix Braberg here, myself, Matej Lančarič, and not one but two special guests, Kate Lovejoy and Niels Bienen. Let's do a quick round of intros before we start. I know Felix loves this, but let's start with Kate this time.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Lovejoy. Super excited to be here. I'm the COO of the retargeting business at Addictive. So very interested in our discussion today on iOS. Looking forward to getting started.
Niels, how about yourself?
Yeah, hey, very excited to be here. My name is Niels Bienen. I head up business development for Singular. So I work a lot with platforms, but also with customers, and we talk a lot about SK Ad Network. So very much looking forward to our discussion today. And thanks for having me on the show.
Yay. Felix, how about yourself, Mr. Admon?
I try to keep you in line. And everything to do with ads, mobile ads, and mobile games. There we go.
There you go. Yeah, and myself taking care of all the UA fun stuff for different companies around the world. And yeah, I don't want to bore you anymore. But today we're going to be discussing 1 year after IDFA Apocalypse happened and all these tectonic shifts that happened. Everything from UA, ad monetization, retargeting, SK Network 4.0 related. So yes, super excited. So let's dive in and enjoy the vibe. So let's start with some information about what actually happened, because 1 year ago, Apple turned the mobile marketing industry upside down with the introduction of its ATT privacy changes. Predictions for the future of the UA and retargeting were grim a little bit, but the doom and gloom forecast don't seem to have materialized. So after all, I don't think it was that bad, right? So how did your day-to-day job change after the IDFA bullshit happened, guys? Can we start with that actually? Or maybe I can start. I can start because everybody said okay, UA is dead, and I was a guest on multiple podcasts talking about how UA is not dead, and it's actually quite the opposite. I'm definitely enjoying myself and all the UA campaigns and everything that's happening since the ATT changed. It's the same thing that before. We just need to think about different optimizations. We need to think about how to evaluate the campaigns properly, which obviously it's not super easy, but we just need to change the lens a little bit. How about yourself, Felix? I know a lot of people also are crying about how ad monetization is dead as well, because can't get a lot of money from the players without the IDFAs.
I'd say the first impact was that my workload doubled on iOS, right? Yeah. So you have to have separate waterfalls set up for LAT and IDFA traffic to ensure that you get the highest eCPMs possible. So then, twice as many waterfalls on iOS to manage. Also increase the workload because you have to do work around what we're going to be discussing a bit later on opt-in rates and how to maximize that. But for me, the delta right now is not as big as it was kind of foreseen between LAT and IDFA, primarily due to fingerprinting. I'm sure we'll discuss that later. But for me, the main issue was just my workload increased dramatically.
But that's a good thing, no?
Oh yeah, I love it.
Keeping you busy,
love
Felix.
Work. Yeah, I love doing extra work because, there we go.
How about you guys?
Yeah, on my end, the busiest moment was really when all those headlines were happening. That was when things kind of changed. So I manage teams that are managing campaigns and really are strategic partners for gaming studios out there. At the moment of ID Apocalypse, with everyone kind of freaking out about UA retargeting are gone forever, that's when basically every conversation I was getting pulled into, every conversation that my team was having was really around what's going to happen? How will we continue retargeting? All of these things. The interesting thing now is that, well, I think we'll talk about this later, iOS retargeting is very much the same as before, based on the way Addictive is doing it. And I guess the biggest change now is we're doing a little more on Android. I had to learn a little bit more about the Android ecosystem.
Nice. And Niels, Singular was like the most vocal MMP out there when this changed, or the ATT change happened. So I guess you prepped quite a lot for everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I joined Singular about a year ago, and before that, I was working in an Android-only platform. So I was, but like, what do I care what's going on? And on iOS, so when I joined, it was a bit of a crash course into ATT. Like I actually remember, like the first couple of weeks going through the slides and going through all the materials, like really scratching my head. And first of all, I asked myself, why are Apple doing this? Like, fundamental question. But I think like the way that my job really changed is, when you work in BD, you speak with partners that all of their own interests, like, and some of them even don't want to speak about ATT. Some of them actually really are very interested because they have a customer base that may be very privacy focused. If you look at the customer level, you'll be super surprised by the level of knowledge that is around. You will find people that are extremely analytical, that know about data, that know about how this can affect their business. But say the less versed UA managers or people that are new in the industry, your talk track, or like the way that you have to explain, even like we'll go into this later, like what's the difference between like Skan 4.0 and 3.0. That is how my job has changed, really translating what is going on and finding ways how it is relevant to whoever you're speaking to. Because to be honest with you, the relevance can vary in hyper degrees, whoever you speak to.
That's so true,
Nice.
Niels. I think we forget sometimes what we're doing is complex. This industry, this thing, and on our side, we have to adapt multiple kinds of materials depending on who we're talking to, which studio, and how in the weeds they are. That really resonates.
Yeah, I always think that everybody knows everything about the UA, and sometimes I talk in acronyms, and it's like, yeah, okay, so what does that even mean? It's like, oh, sorry, I thought you already know. But yeah, that's these 10 years in the industry, you tend to forget. But yeah, so there's this report that was published by Addictive, which says that the opt-in rates are about like 40%, which is not a bad number actually. And Felix, you had some secret tips that you shared on one of our sessions before. So can you please share these again, and like why? There is another follow-up question, like why should companies test out pre-prompts windows, and why should they even care?
Yeah. So it's a very good topic to discuss, and it's a very interesting topic, but I don't think that many companies are currently doing it, which makes it kind of, this exotic topic to talk about. So companies really need to, simply put, like, experiment with a pre-prompt, because you can really, really push your opt-in rate of users who like opt in to tracking, which is extremely like valuable to you as a gaming company, at least from the ad side. I know the ad side is not like as big as the IAP side. So if you look at the spectrum, I would say the true masters in our industry right now is the hyper casual companies. They embraced this very early on and started testing. They started seeing kind of the highest opt-in rates, I would say, in industry. And when you move up more hardcore like titles or mid-core, it's not that many people that do testing on it. But before I kind of go in on how to maximize it, I actually pulled some data on a couple of the games that I manage. So this is a sample size of around 18 million rewarded impressions from the last 14 days. So the eCPM delta in the US between IDFA and LAT traffic is now 42%. Last summer, this was around 20%. So this, the delta is like increasing, which means that your IDFA traffic is priced on average 42% higher in the States compared to the LAT traffic. So that kind of answers the question why companies should care about this, because you can earn 42% higher
Significant
eCPMs.
amount of money.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that if you don't have a pre-prompt or even like optimized towards like anything, or have any think like thoughts put behind where to put the pre-prompt, then you usually tend to average anywhere between 15 to 20% in opt-in rates. That's what I've kind of seen. And then when you add a good flow with opt-in rates or opt-in messaging, you're usually able to get that to 40 to 54% if you kind of know what you're doing. So pretty simple. I'm just going to reiterate what we said on the podcast a couple of months ago. There's 3 things you can do. The first thing is that pre-prompts need to be shown as early as possible after first app open. Generally has to be before the tutorial, and the shorter time, like frame before, after the app open, the better. The messaging in a pre-prompt window is very important. It needs to contain like maybe 3 lines of a heartfelt message that kind of appeals to your users. I had really good luck with, we rely on your consent to make our games free to play. Please allow tracking. And then we had some colorful game art on the side by this. And then right after this message, that's when you get your kind of, allowed to track and ask not to track. And also the third thing is, localize this messaging in like your top geos. And I guarantee you, like, this will get you an opt-in rate of 40 to 50%.
Do you know like what was the difference between English text versus the localized text, or you don't know?
So we translated mainly to, in the company I was in then, we were mainly doing Germany and Japanese, and the opt-in rate in Japan was 18% before, and after that it was 38%, and then we changed the messaging a bit because cultural connotations, and it's a bit different in Japan because it's Japan.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I believe we finished on about 42%. So quite a lot better.
Nice. Okay, so let's try to think about how do gaming companies look at the retargeting in general. Like, how was it before the IDFA, and how is it now? Is there a significant percentage of their spend that's going to retargeting? Do you know? Can you share?
For sure. I would say for the most sophisticated studios, it's 20-25%. It's been interesting over the past few years. I've been at Addictive for the last 4 years in the retargeting space, coming from UA before. And 4 years ago, it was really the most sophisticated studios were doing retargeting. It was kind of testing, experimental, building out programs. And I've really seen a shift in the more recent years where it's becoming more mandatory to do retargeting, where more people are considering it a must-have to protect their UA costs, to protect their payers, most importantly, to make sure that they're maximizing their payer base. So I think it's really become more important than ever before.
Okay. So there's this one question, like, if you're running UA and you are running also retargeting, like how do you incorporate these costs into the campaigns? Like, do you see approaches from the sophisticated studios, like, because this kind of like increases the CPIs quite heavily. If I'm spending 10K on the UA and then adding 2K on top of it with retargeting, then it kind of makes things more expensive.
Of course. And so there's a few things that I think about here. First is if you drive an install and then they're gone from the app for a week or 2 weeks, that user is gone. So that's kind of a sunk cost at that point. So if you have a valuable player that is gone from your app for 2 weeks, it's going to be much cheaper for you to acquire that valuable player again than it would be to run new UA, where some of the users will be valuable, some will be less valuable. That's one thing I'll say off the bat, is I think there's this misconception that once you get a user, they're in your app, they'll be there forever, they're yours, they're never going to churn, and it's just not the reality. We see it in the data that once users stop playing for a week, it's they've really lost interest. So it's very important to send those nudges and reminders, and you can really maximize your LTV that way. Now,
Yeah,
when
but
we think, go
in
ahead.
this case, sorry to interrupt. In this case, like sending these nudges, we can do that by sending push messages, right?
Do you have
As well.
100% opt-in for your push?
Most probably no.
Probably
But that's
not,
also
right?
like one, yeah, of course. But that's
For
also
sure.
like free, But
100%.
also,
And I
of course,
think
there's not one.
it's, it's got to be multiple approaches. You've got to be doing push. You have to be doing retargeting. The thing that I think is interesting on the retargeting side is you can actually target a user while they're playing another game. A little different than push. You know for sure that they're in a game environment. They're in a probably a relaxed mode where they want to be playing, and you steal them away and bring them back to your app.
Oh yeah, okay.
Getting back to your question though about the costs, the other way you can do it if you really want to look at it from a super clean test measurement perspective is you can have essentially cohorts that you're retargeting at any given time of new installers. So say you have a cohort of new installers for a week, you can potentially target those users for 2 or 3 weeks, set a really defined window of when you'll be allowed to go after them. Maybe a certain number of touches that you want to do, a certain number of creatives that you want to get in front of them, and then it's a little simpler to attach your retargeting costs to that install cohort. I wouldn't recommend doing that long term because it's complicated to split up your campaigns that way, but it can give you some cleanish measurement at least.
Yeah, okay. In terms of the measurement, Niels, like how do you approach retargeting at Singular? Like, do you help companies setting up the retargeting stack and like help them with the proper evaluation? Because it's not like super easy to do, and that's something that is really blocking companies from running retargeting campaigns.
Yeah, I think blocking a company from running a campaign, that is definitely what we are here to help people with not to do. I think first and foremost, I think a couple of points what Kate mentioned. Like I sit in quite a lot of QBRs with large game developers, and if you see the amount of spend that goes to retargeting, if you see the ROI that is coming from retargeting as a channel as well, we definitely see the importance of it. And if you look at verticals like social casino, for example, there's even jobs right now created that are like retargeting specialists, right? So that kind of indicates like how important this really is. Now, if you look at it from a measurement point of view, again, it's about the visualization of like what are you actually doing. And at Singular, I think when you go to the first step, it's like, hey, what is the definition actually, like what we're trying to do? And I want to mention here like re-engagement. Re-engagement is like where we start at. It's like, okay, you acquire the user, that user then lapsed, like Kate said as well, like they may have been inactive for like a week or something. And when they then appear back into your app, in this case, a game, this is what we count as a re-engagement. And then it will be attributed to the same channel where that user is coming from.
Okay.
Now, if you run specific campaigns to force that re-engagement, then we are talking about retargeting, and then you will have like a separate report that indicates, hey, that user is attributed, for example, to addictive and comes from your retargeting activities, and then you can do all the calculations that you want. Now, I think there's a bit of a difference, I think, in between MMPs in the way that you can customize those campaigns. In Singular, for example, the inactivity window, you can customize it. The standard is 7 days. But if you ask, hey, like, what do you advise as an MMP customers to do? We don't advise them anything. We basically say, hey, like, you can decide what you feel is right for your campaigns and consult with the retargeting partners that you work with, and then create a level playing ground. And it's a point I rather make. I don't want to be in that position that like we become a UA agency as an MMP. We are there. We are there to visualize the data. That may be a bit dry, but it's up to Addictive to then see with their customers, what do you want to measure and how do you want to measure it and how do you want to visualize it, and that's where we come in.
Yeah, but like there are these measurements where companies are creating the control group so they can actually compare how the re-engagement improves the numbers and what it actually does to the campaigns, and if it brings additional and incremental ROI. So if you have these type of things in Singular, that would be super helpful. If don't, then of course, like, I mean, that's why companies have their own data team, right?
Yep.
Yeah, in terms of the iOS and retargeting on iOS, like, Kate, how do you approach retargeting on iOS, and like, how do you actually measure it?
Yeah,
Niels
for sure.
mentioned there are different reports on the Singular side, but how do you actually measure that on your side? What's the difference?
Yeah, for sure. So our measurement, I'll say that we do incrementality studies on our end. I do want to just mention that we actually have a control group set
That's
on our
okay.
campaigns that is verifiable. I think this is very important. I think we're the only retargeting partner that has
Yeah.
verifiable incrementality. So we very
There you
simply
go.
split the control group into the control and the target
Mhm.
group, and then we actually give our partners
Yep.
the formula so that they can back into how we did that split.
Oh,
So
nice. Okay.
just a little plug on the measurement side. But to go back to your question about iOS, so for us, it's completely
Yep.
deterministic. So the way we're approaching it is really trying to take Apple's direction at face value. As we said earlier, there's a 40 to 50% opt-in on some of these apps. When you're working with clients like TikTok, Amazon, let's think about 40 to 50% of their user base. There's meaningful retargeting to be done there. So we're really taking the deterministic approach where we're only going after users who have given consent. And for those users, we're able to find them on the publisher apps. What we're seeing is that if a user opts in to our client's app, most likely they've been opting in elsewhere as well. It's not that they're only opting in on your app, so we can find them. The match rates, if we look on iOS from a year ago to today, there's about a 7-point difference for those users who have opted in, 7% less. So really, we can find those folks if they've opted in, and in that way, measurement is business as usual.
But why is not, like, nobody is talking about like how, well, let's say, easy it is? Like, why is it happening? Okay.
On the retargeting side, we
Well,
should
of
be
course,
talking
because
about it more. Yeah.
Okay, because like everybody said, like I mentioned at the beginning, like, yeah, well, UA is dead, retargeting is dead. There's no way how you can actually retarget those iOS users, and then like nobody listens to anybody. Like, yeah, okay, so it's dead. We move
Yeah.
on.
A much more exciting
Okay.
headline to say it's the apocalypse. It's the cookies are crumbling everything.
Yeah, that's true.
And all
Yeah,
this.
all these click bites. Okay, yeah, okay, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, also like JK mentioned this on his previous podcast. Like, yeah, this UA apocalypse and everything is dead. And like, what do you mean? That's like alive and kicking and like better than ever. It's like, yeah, but it's like not attention grabbing headline. Like, okay, I get it.
Right.
So you need to think about.
Exactly, but like but like I see this still on LinkedIn as well. Like I sometimes think that like LinkedIn has become some sort of tabloid, right? It's like people just like shout things that grabs their attention, and you got like you can really be a bit more original. And like I saw one the other day that also complained about, hey, Apple, thank you for destroying your own business. You go like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
And then you still click.
Yeah, of course, because you want to know like what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, I need to think about how we should name this session so it's appropriately
Well,
attached.
the angriest you've been at me, Maciej, was when I said UA was dead as a joke, and you didn't speak to me for like half a day. It was brilliant. But I actually wanted to follow up that. Okay, I'm a bit curious, like in terms of volumes that you're seeing and budget spend, like when these headlines were flowing, like did you see clients scale back significantly on iOS, or is that back now, or how's the split looking? What was the split before, and what's the split now in terms of overall spend?
I mean, honestly, when a year ago, we made a concerted effort to shift a lot of budgets over to Android, given that things were so up in the air. We wanted to make sure, okay, we can kind of do business as usual on Android while we figure out iOS with our partners. And so there was this shift over to Android initially that we had kind of spearhead. And now that we're seeing that, oh, wait, it's not a 5% opt-in rate. it's up to 40% in some cases. Over the year, we've been adding back on those iOS campaigns. And so for most of our partners, they're now working with like a fluid budget, and we move it around depending on where the scale and performance is. Of course, there's less scale on iOS today. I'm not going to pretend that 40% is the same as it was before, but there's meaningful retargeting to be done there.
It's also the same thing happened. Sorry, Felix. The same thing happened like with UA budgets. Everybody was shitting their pants because of the measurement and evaluation of the campaign. So they just dropped like all the budgets suddenly and moved it to Android, which created like two things. iOS was really like competitionless, like no competition. Nobody was spending there, which created a pretty good environment, at least for me. So thank you very much for doing that. And then the other thing was like Android was super competitive and expensive as fuck. So like, thank you for doing that as well. So
these things just create opportunities.
I know, right? It's true.
And that's what's happening right now, right? It's a moment of opportunity, I think, on iOS, where it is a field that's a little less crowded. You can potentially come in.
Yeah, I'm also like running pretty great campaigns on iOS for different companies, and it's slightly different UA mix than it was before, and it is on Android, but still pretty reasonable, and the scale is kind of nice as well. So yeah, huge opportunities. Why not to leverage those? And speaking of opportunities in iOS, Apple recently announced like this Skan 4.0. And without going too geeky, what can we expect? Niels, how are these changes going to affect the MMPs and the measurements?
Well, I kind of feel that I'm the geek on the show today because
maybe a little bit.
I all these questions, right?
Yeah.
No, but without joking, I mean, like we did a webinar with Rovio a couple of weeks ago, and we did a very simple poll, and we asked people, hey, like, how do you feel about your success rate with SK Network right now? And I think 9% of participants said that they were comfortable with their performance right now,
really?
which means that like more than 90% was sort of saying like, hey, like, I can't make this work. And that can have like various reasons, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you look at like 4.0 or 3.0, like in my opinion, whatever like, Apple is doing right now, it is really going through a couple of iterations. And I think that Apple, itself probably has realized as well that, it hasn't really made the work of UA manager better. It simply has really put on more complications. And Singular really jumped into that, like with, their product suite. But even like, with the product suite that we have, like every conversation I have in market, your kind of standard reaction that you get is like, I can't make Skan work. It is not performing. And if you then say, for example, but okay, when you say, hey, it's not performing, you do realize that part of your data is missing.
Yeah.
People sometimes go like, oh, I was not aware. It's like, yeah, like some of your revenue is actually not shown, which means that your actual ROI probably is a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But that aside, I mean, there's a couple of updates that were made in 4.0, and I think like the main thing is relating to the postbacks that you can receive.
Yep.
So in 3.0, you had like one postback you could receive like within 24 hours, and you could choose what postback that could be, and you can then choose like your model based on like what ad that you're marketing as well. For a game, you're probably looking at at revenue. Now, the biggest update in 4.0 is that like you can now receive up to 3 postbacks. The first one is what we call a fine postback, which is the same as right now. It can be, for example, IP, so revenue.
Yep.
And the second and the third, which can come like a couple of days later, and then again one a couple of days later, are what we call cores. And this is like one of the things, like sometimes when you go into this presentation, right, because like, why can't you just use like normal human language? Because, you need to translate this to like, UA manager that, maybe as like, it comes out of uni, like 1 or 2 years and study, I don't know, politics. Like they don't know anything about like data analytics. So long story short, the course values that you can get are kind of 3 levels, which can be anything from shit to meh to good. So say, for example, if you have an e-commerce app, it can be a window shopper, a first-time buyer, or a repeat buyer. And these come in two levels. So like if you then ask, hey, like, what do marketeers need to prepare themselves for? It is basically an enhancement of what you have right now. And ask yourselves questions like, if I can pre-qualify the users that I want to acquire, if I then want to optimize based on like the additional prospects that I can receive, how would I group these? Last point that I have to make here is that like, we are still as a company iterating on like how are we going to adapt like our product stack to those changes. I mean, we're doing this as we speak. We made some recent changes in 3.0, but about that later. But what companies need to talk about is like the additional postbacks. How can I use them based on like what information they give me?
If you've built a mobile game for iOS or Android, you've experienced user churn. You can win those users back, but it's getting more and more expensive, even more so to acquire totally new users. Enter cross-promotion with Addictive. By identifying your users likely to churn early, you can showcase another game in your portfolio before they leave forever, transforming a lost user into a new user, increasing your revenues. Learn more now at addictive.com.
All right, and you mentioned there was this the Rovio webinar. Like, is there any tip that you could share that might help the other companies with SKN?
Yeah, I think there's one problem right now is of course like about creative ROI, because like Skan doesn't allow you
Yeah.
to do that. Now, if you have the data flexibility and if you can actually combine your Android data and your Skan opt-in data, so iOS opt-in data, then actually you get a more complete picture of like how your creators are actually performing, and like that's what Rovi are doing right now. And this for me was a good takeaway. It's what I can recommend other people do as well.
Nice. Yeah, I'm seeing on Facebook like all these like modeled conversions on creative level, which is, I mean, sometimes very far from the truth, but at least something that you can take into the creative meeting and brainstorming, and at least like say, oh, this is performing good or bad.
Yep.
Or
Yeah,
you
better than nothing, right?
you could test it on retargeting on your users who have opted in. Test your different creatives, see what the top performer is for your payers. That might translate to UA as well.
Ooh, how is that working? Can you share a little bit more? That's
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
interesting.
So I think I mentioned before, we don't support actually SK Ad Network, or I should say Skan doesn't support retargeting.
Yeah.
So because we're working just with opted in users. So we have all of the device ID data. We don't have to worry about Skan. We have full LTV. We can see how cohorts mature, all of these things. Attribution works same as before. So in some ways, it's a great testing ground for things. So we have partners who will run creative tests with us, try out different themes, different characters, things like that. And then those learnings can be fed back into their user acquisition campaigns.
Okay, that's kind of nice.
Yeah,
If you can run also, like you can run creative testing on Android and then take those
for sure.
learnings and then use it on iOS as well. If you don't run retargeting campaigns, of course.
Of course.
All right, so you don't need Skan for anything in terms of the retargeting. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. So Felix, retargeting the opt-in rates. Do you have like any information about like which game genres have the highest opt-in rates that you could see?
So first way to answer that is if you're doing something around the opt-in rates, that's usually like whichever game has the higher opt-in rates. But if you're more reliant on ad revenue, those are the ones that tend to have the higher opt-in rates. Hyper casual wins here off like quite by a lot, and then you kind of see it decreasing, exactly like I said before. Yeah, you need to do some work around on it.
Yeah, like they're always trying to find loopholes because everybody in the industry already said, again, the hyper casual is dead for like 3 years. I'm hearing that, and they're still again like alive and kicking. So they need to find these. Okay, and except the hyper casuals, any other games like what, like idle games maybe, or some others?
Yeah, it's around the same, but yeah, I'd say hyper casual are always kind of the ones leading it because their margins are so dependent on it. So absolutely, like yeah, those are the ones leading the charge.
Okay. Also, since we have here Niels, I'm seeing some new product innovations coming into Singular. Can you talk about that as well? Because I know I've seen something around the conversion schemas that you can help like calculate how it should be changed, and some D7 ROAS calculations as well.
Yep, absolutely. This is what I was referring to, in innovations in 3.0, if you can call it
Okay.
like that. It's what, what Kate touched on as well. It's like, hey, on Skan, you can't actually calculate like the day 7 ROAS on your campaigns. You can to but like we did this, and it's like 95% accurate.
Okay.
It's data analytics. So like if it's at scale, you can actually calculate and model the conversions that you're missing, or model the revenue that you're missing. I produced a guide, or not me, the marketing team produced a guide that I share with you, Mate, as well,
Okay.
that really explains, what does this look like, and how does your reporting look like as well. But the customers that we have that are using it are saying, hey, like this is basically like bringing my job back to like how I did my job 2 years ago, because I can simply have a single source of truth and really rely on my data, and it's working for them. Yeah.
Well, watch out with the single source of truth. That's one product from another MMP. Also very
Yeah,
close.
I think the single source of truth is probably more a copy of like Singular, but probably some contention in the industry. But how we like to poke at each other as
Of course,
MMPs.
yeah, of course.
Of course,
Oh,
we were
but
first, but
yeah,
The MMP space known to have the sharpest elbows in our industry, right?
yeah, bam, bam.
I actually
yeah.
have an interesting question that I thought of just now, actually, since I have you guys here. It's a bit more on the gossip and speculation side, but
Ooh, we love that.
very good, very good. So the asteroid impacted last year. Most of the dinosaurs, if not all the dinosaurs, are still alive. We went through this quite well. It wasn't as bad of an impact we thought, like with them getting rid of the privacy changes on iOS. But if we look up into the sky, there is another asteroid like right outside the atmosphere, which is that Google has announced that potentially the GID days are also numbered. I think
They're
probably
not numbered.
not numbered, but essentially like they've said that there will be some kind of impact. So I wanted to ask, like, Nils, you have a good pulse like on kind of the industry. What have you heard about Google? And then I would probably like Kate to chime in, because you are the COO of a big retargeting company. Like, how are you actually interacting with Google on this? But yeah, let's start with Nils.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not the person that actually sits at the table with Google in my organization. Like, I'm not like senior.
But you
enough
should.
for
Something.
that.
This
You
is
should.
4 a.m.
I should. I
Yeah.
should. I know. I'll bring this up to my CEO to see if we can arrange this. No, but long story short, like our one of our co-founders, Gadi, launched a blog post on this as well. I think what Google are doing, which is very interesting, is like they are really listening to the industry, and they're really like taking their time to speak to several partners in terms of, hey, how can this affect your platform? Like, how does this affect UA? Because in the end of the day, what they want is they want to drive users to the Google Play Store, and they want people to actually work with the Google tools and like make Google a profitable company. So they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. And this is, that is a kind of like high level feeling that we get from Google. One of the things that we can really point out is like the creative level ROI that you don't get with Skan is something that you will get with Google Privacy Sandbox. And, in the gaming space, that is already super important to have.
Yeah.
And Kate,
Yeah.
are you being heard by Google?
We actually are, and that's the shocking thing to me. I mean, there's such a huge difference from the way Apple approached privacy to the way Google has. I mean, we met with Google on Monday of this week, and their team presented what they're doing with Fledge, asked for our feedback, was talking about how it impacts our platform, came with solutions. We'll meet again on attribution. We're talking about partners that we can work with, bringing in a studio to kind of beta test things. They're releasing all of the technical materials way far in advance before they're going to enforce anything. So we're looking at a 2024 rollout, and they said that in their initial press release, and they've held to that. So they're continuing to work with advertising partners just as they said they would. So it's been pretty great. I'm very confident that there'll be a good solution for
Nice.
retargeting on Android based on just their willingness to listen and share what they're up to.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because they said that they're going to work with different parties, and until everybody is satisfied, they won't move forward with the privacy sandbox. So if it's going to be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2 years, pretty good.
Yeah, very developer first. Very developer first.
Yeah. That's
All right, nice. So the Google asteroid is just a mere pebble then.
But you know,
I
like
did like how this conversation like went
Yeah.
from like the dinosaur
yeah,
extinction
yeah, I was
to
Yeah, well, that's what
privacy
everyone thought it was
sandbox.
going to be. That's what
That's
everyone thought it was
amazing.
going to be.
Yeah.
But look, the IDFA apocalypse wasn't actually an apocalypse after all. So all the dinosaurs are still pretty much alive.
Yeah.
Like from the UA perspective as well. Like just going back to what you mentioned, Niels, about the day 7 ROAS and the calculations. So on iOS, still up until this date, you had at least like first 24 hours of data thanks to Skan. And even with that, you could build really nice prediction models based on the day 1 that you could then use and model day 7, day 30, day 60, day 90, whatever. With pretty good accuracy, actually. So that's something that I was using before. So like you have these like different approaches to measurement. You have either like media mix modeling, incrementality tests, LTV predictions, or if you don't have anything or you don't have the capacity to work with different companies, or you don't have the data team, then there's one approach left, which is blended approach. You spend X, you earn X plus 100%, and then you try to measure what's the delta between that and what are the margins. Simply as that. Yeah. So any last tips, tricks, comments, recommendations for the companies out there that you could share? Kate.
I mean, like,
Yeah, wait.
no, Kate
Let's
first.
start.
Kate
Yeah,
first.
yeah. Let's start with the
Let's see.
women
Let's
here.
see.
Come on,
I would
ladies,
say
ladies first. Ladies first.
Thanks, guys. What gentlemen. I would say my top tip is target your payers sooner than you think you have to and measure the incrementality. If I could get in front of every gaming studio marketer and tell them that would be my number one advice. There's such a short period typically between when folks are making purchases that if you target them within 3 days, say, of your last purchase of their last purchase, that sounds crazy. It sounds like you're cannibalizing organic, but the reality is you can make them make way more purchases and add a higher cadence, and the incrementality backs out. So test it, experiment with it would be my number one tip.
Yeah, well, you have the control group, so you can measure actually if it's cannibalizing or not. So
exactly.
it's perfect.
So try it. And iOS isn't dead. That's all I have to say.
Exactly. Well, Niels, now you can.
Now it's my
it's
chance to shine, but I'm never going to outshine Kate. This is for sure. No, like I was on a panel a few months ago with all of the MMPs on stage, and there was a bit of a conversation about the future of privacy. And I think my tip to UA managers, especially, is like, there is definitely a tendency that the industry itself is going to be much more privacy centric, which means that yes, it can actually be quite annoying to read into Skan Ad Network. It can be also quite annoying to read into like what are Google planning with Google Privacy Sandbox. I would still advise everyone to spend a little bit of time in just like, updating yourself, making yourself a bit more knowledgeable, because who knows, like, a storm may be brewing, some more updates that Apple may release in the future, where, Skan may become a very, very important, part of your day to day. And, as we all know, it's better to start sooner than later. That would be my piece of advice.
Nice. Felix, anything from your side?
Just experiment, exactly like Kate said, but you're not going to make your opt-ins rates any worse by trying and putting on like different messagings and things like that. Like, it's really hard to make it worse. You're only going to make it better.
And from my side, it's since the IDFA change happened, I definitely talk more with the product teams and trying to leverage the first 24 hours and try to get as many events as possible. Now with the Skan 4.0, it's gonna be a little bit easier, but still, with this change, we need to sit down with the product teams and try to think about how we can actually leverage not only first 24 hours but more days of data. So definitely sit down with your game team and try to prep for everything in advance. All right, yeah, I think that's it, guys. So thank you very much for coming, thank you very much for sharing everything. It was really real nice session. And for our dear listeners, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And until next time, thank you very much. Bye bye.
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 Bye.